The White House today defending these shocking remarks made by President Obama at the National Prayer Breakfast. Listen.
And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ.
Deputy Press Secretary Eric Schultz doubled down, saying, quote, Americans should hold themselves up to our own values and our own standards. When we fall short of that, we need to be honest with ourselves. To do just that, joining us two guests who've taken exception to Mr. Obama's remarks, Reverend C.L. Bryant, ordained Baptist minister, pastor, a fellow with Freedom Works, and former president of the NAACP's Garland, Texas chapter, and Bishop E.W. Jackson, founder of Exodus Faith Ministries. He's also the founder of the group STAND, Staying True to America's National Destiny. We thank you both for being with us. I want to start with you, if I may, Reverend Bryant. Former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore said that the President of the United States went to the point that he makes it clear he doesn't believe in America's values or the country itself. What do you think?
When you deal with a president whose ideology was shaped by a pastor like Jeremiah Wright, who rains damnation down upon the past deeds of America, no one should be surprised at the type of venom that this president apparently has toward America and its past. I believe that America is the greatest success story that the world has ever known. But too many times this president would like for us to wallow in the victimization of what we were and not what we have become. We have become the last great hope of the entire world, and that world is looking toward us for leadership, and this president has not offered it. It's been sorely lacking in being the leader of the free world, and that's what we're looking for.
Bishop Jackson, your reaction?
Well, look, sorely disappointed once again, because this president seems to be much more committed to a far-left vision for the world than to a constitutional and Judeo-Christian values vision for our country. I mean, think about what he said. He said we shouldn't get on our high horse. And many people have said that the president has this view that America needs to be brought down a notch, that we need to be humbled. And it seems that he's taken that mantle upon himself to be sure that it's done. The reality is this nation is a Judeo-Christian nation, and that's why Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists and Jews and people of all backgrounds can worship and practice their religion freely in this country, and we all celebrate that. But he doesn't seem to celebrate that. He seems to think that we have hatred in our hearts or that we are condescending toward, for example, Muslims, and so he won't even call it Islamic terrorism. We do need clarity of leadership.
Isn't it interesting? This is a president who is patronizing and condescending to all Americans when he acts as if we're all so stupid that we couldn't make a distinction between radical Islamist terrorists and those of the Muslim faith who practice their religion faithfully and peacefully. Reverend Bryant, why is there so little discussion right now about the way in which this president constantly over the course of 6 years has denigrated, has absolutely criticized unfairly and to me just horribly the entire country, a man you would think would be appreciative of the values that made him, gave him the opportunity to become president?
And that's exactly the point, Lou. And when we look at the pulpits around the country, the preachers, the pastors in those pulpits have been far too silent. When I look at the black congregations around this country, black people by and large are perhaps the most Christianized of all segments of America. But paradoxically, they were the vote and they are the foundation on which this president stands. But yet, his statements yesterday were very telling that he has no respect for the core values of the people who, in fact, are the most loyal to him. And he has no real respect for the office that he holds in this country. When you compare the American history or world history to 1,000 years ago to American history in relationship to the brutality of these types of barbarians who are killing Christians all over the Middle East and certainly would like to kill us here on this soil, he showed very clearly that he does not understand the type of enemy that we face. And we as Christians now must stand on the principles that have made us great and will take us into the future.
Reverend Jackson, I have to say, I think Reverend Bryant has said it exactly right. I also think that it is very clear now, if it has not been clear for some time, and by that I mean some years on the part of this president, that this nonsense about not using the expression radical Islamic or Islamist or Islamic extremist, he thinks is defining in some way. And yet it's his inability to come to grips with the fact that he has to define and name the enemy if he's to defeat it. Do you think it goes to the very issue that he has found this phony adjunct issue that surrounds the war against radical Islamist terrorism, in which he wants to focus rather than the battle itself?
Lou, for some reason, this president can't bring himself to recognize the reality that sits right in front of him. Look, I have Muslims in my family. I love them very much. They are Muslims. They are not radical terrorists.
Right.
They are not Islamic terrorists. It's an easy distinction to make, and yet he doesn't want to make it. And I think, frankly, it's because he somehow thinks that on some level, it's America's fault. On some level, the things that we have done, going all the way back to the Crusades, the things that the West have done, that America's done, somehow has led us to this, somehow has caused this kind of thing, poverty and depression, when it's really sheer evil, and he simply won't call it for what it is. It's evil, and it's got to be stamped out.
Bishop, thank you very much. Reverend Bryant, Bishop E.W. Jackson, thank you both, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.